Hi, Millen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Shannon. So good to be with you and your audience. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited.
I am too. Would you just introduce yourself to everybody listening? Let them know who you are and what it is you do.
Sure. My name is Millen Livis. I refer to myself as a holistic financial independence mentor. I help people who struggle with worries about financial future, which is many people these days. And I help them, in short, I help them to have more money with less risk and less stress so that they actually can create financial independence in their lives.
And you bring up a good point that I don't think anyone is immune from some type of financial fear right now. In times of economic uncertainty and a lot of volatility, I think even the most savvy still have a little bit of financial fear of the uncertain, of the risks, of all the things that they're going through. And this can help so many people. How did you become so passionate about financial freedom and sharing it with others?
It's a very long story, but let me condense it a little bit. So I'm originally from Lithuania. It's a former Soviet Union. So when I came to the United States over 34 years ago with my little family, we didn't have any money. And I also didn't speak any English. So I started as a florist assistant and self-taught English. And within 1 year, I was working as a information technology consultant for Merrill Lynch. And from there, I worked for major Wall Street companies, became a senior executive. And at some point, I felt, how is it possible that I created this American dream life that I always wanted for myself and my family? But deep inside, I felt deflated. I felt not full. At the same time, and it could also be a contributing factor, my marriage was falling apart. It worked on the surface. I had everything that I wanted. And yet, like I said, deep inside, it was very unfulfilling, very sad existence. So being as a decisive person as I am, I walked out of my marriage and I resigned from my job. And because I wasn't sure what to do next, I didn't have clarity of mind. I followed the suggestion of my manager and I went to the Wharton Business School. Had no idea why, because it was something that everybody suggested as a next best step. So I graduated with a prestigious MBA degree, but again, deep inside, I knew that I don't want to go back to corporate. And I was like, I invested so much money into this education. Like, what am I doing? I followed my intuition and I started my real estate investment company. Got business partners. We were doing very well. And then 2008 happened and market crash, the real estate market crash, stock market crash. And my business crashed with market crash and I crashed with my business. So became, at that time, I was divorced, depressed and broke, like literally had problem paying my rent. And I felt so embarrassed, so ashamed. And it was a very painful phase in my life. And fortunately, I was introduced to this gentleman who was a life coach. And he said something really profound. He said, because I kept saying, I'm such a failure, I'm such a failure. I was considering ending my life. It was really bad. And he said, failure is not a person, it's an experience. It has the beginning and the end. And he gave me just enough hope to be willing to give it another shot. And so I didn't have money. I had to borrow money to work with him because he said, you've got to work with me. My first reaction, of course, was, I can't afford you. And he said, my dear, you can't afford not to work with me. So while I started working with him, things started shifting. My perspectives, my definition of success. I started to basically turning this ship around and seeing light again, started thinking more clearly. So I actually got to the point that I had clarity of mind and clarity of action. That's two principles of Stoic philosophers for success. And so I made some great investments, and to my own surprise, and most financial advisors' surprise, I became financially independent within 7 years. And I discovered the secret to one of the secrets was developing multiple sources of income. And so When I became financially independent, I published a couple of books. You can find them on Amazon. And then I said, people read books, but they don't act on their knowing. And that's when I decided to become holistic financial advisor, not advisor, mentor. I'm not a financial advisor, holistic financial mentor. So I could help people to have clarity of mind, clarity of action, and ultimately become financially independent faster than they could imagine is possible. So that's my story, my spiel in a very condensed version.
Absolutely. And one thing that always runs through that story is, like you keep saying, clarity of mind, clarity of action. And I think that one thing that is overemphasized right now is fast action, messy action. And I think that there's a place for that. But I think when it comes to a lot of things with your finances, a lot of people are taking fast action to do something, but don't have that clarity of mind, which is so important. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on the importance of clarity of mind and what exactly you mean by that and how people can achieve that?
Sure. I love what you brought up, that a lot of people feel that they need to catch up. Like maybe they in their 50s and they feel like, oh my God, I'm behind. I have to start investing in the stock market ASAP. And they feel that they don't have time to educate themselves. They feel that they can just maybe hire a financial advisor and follow this advice and without knowing what is right for them and what is not, and just take some action. And I think some people learn this the hard way. Like I spoke with several women. One of them invested 500,000 of her retirement funds and lost it with financial advisor, certified financial advisor. So I want to remind people that nobody cares about your money more than you do. Not your bankers, not your financial advisors, not your government, especially not your government, right? So that's why it's so important for everybody to be financially savvy and know what is right for you, what is not. I know that traditionally, most financial advisors suggested to have 60-40 allocation of assets in a financial portfolio, 60% in stock and 40% in bonds. And many don't mention that right now it's not the right asset allocation. And asset allocation is one of the main principles of successful investing. So right now, bonds were going through very hard time and still going through very hard time. So I would say right now, bonds are not the good investment. So if you don't get informed, if you don't start reading about current economic environment, about declining purchasing power of US dollar, et cetera, if you don't become informed consumer, you can, without even realizing this, you can get yourself in a trap and then look back and regret. And instead of catching up, you will actually lose time and money. Many people experience that with cryptocurrencies, right? Because financial advisors don't promote cryptocurrency because they don't get paid. Remember, financial advisors only get paid on instruments that you can buy on the stock market. But you've got to be informed about other instruments that you can invest in, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, asset allocation is one of the most important aspects of successful investing. And diversification within each asset is also one of the risk management tools. So all of these things are important for you to be aware of in order to succeed when you make financial decisions. So being financially savvy is essential, especially right now, because we live through very uncertain times, economic times and political times, I would say, right? So it's very important that you become aware of what is right, what decision is right for you, based on your age, based on your experience, based on where you live, based on your circumstances, right? We talked briefly before we started this show, and I mentioned to Shannon that I see so many women these days that I talk to who run enthusiastically in the wrong direction. They feel like, oh my God, like right now I've got to invest in stocks or in cryptocurrencies because they read something that it will go up. And it's very sad for me to see how sometimes we want to save money And because we're not informed well, we actually lose money and time.
I agree. And
That
it's
was about clarity of mind, right? Like I hope I
exactly.
danced around this.
Yeah. And what's interesting is we give up a lot of that power to the financial advisors and to the voices that are saying all these different things that of what we should do with our money. And the most empowering thing is knowing the impact of what is happening so that you can make your own decisions. And I think that's really the clarity of mind and the clarity of action we're talking about is knowing how these things impact. So you don't have to necessarily know what maybe what bonds, what stocks. You can get help with some of those things, but maybe you just know what your overall strategy is based on your personal goals and the information around you to know, hey, interest rates are going up. What does that mean? Or the currency is changing, or whatever may be happening in the economy, inflation is rising. What does that mean? Not only for your day to day economics of purchasing groceries and so on, but what does that mean for your portfolio? What does that mean for your goals? What does that mean for how your strategy should be shifting like a boat where you're steering now? And I think that's really important to understand is just the impact of these factors, not just listening to all the different tactics of people telling you to turn the wheel left or right, but knowing why you are. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And I just want to say when someone gives you a suggestion, okay, buy this or sell this or do that, like you've got to be able to discern if this advice actually a right advice for you. And how can you be discerning? By being educated about like basic trends, right? Basic trends with interest rates, with what is happening with the bond market, what is happening with cryptocurrencies, what is happening with precious metals market, et cetera, right? So it's like you said, the details you can, first of all, you can research yourself. You can invest in some investment letters, so you can work with financial advisor. But whether you do it yourself or you do it with someone, being informed is the most essential aspect right now of any financial success and of making financial decisions. I call it being financially savvy, right? So not just like completely aloof of what is happening in the world, especially with your money in the
Yes.
money world.
And a big part of that is it being in the pursuit of financial independence. Now, you mentioned that you became financially independent. There's financial independence, financial freedom, and these became buzzwords getting thrown around right now on things to achieve and goals to achieve. What is your definition, Milan, of the idea of financial independence? And what are some of the definitions you've heard from possibly clients and others that you've talked to? What is their version of that?
Great question. Short story about that, because as I described, I was one of these women who was running enthusiastically in the wrong direction, right? And so finally, when I graduated from this prestigious and expensive business school and I decided not to go back to corporate, I actually took a pause and I asked myself, what is it that's so important to you that you will be willing not stop? And the answer came right away: freedom. For me, it was freedom. It was about not being with a person I don't want to be with just because I'm afraid that I may not support myself, not working for the boss, for the manager who I'm not aligned with, and just because I'm afraid that I may not be able to find another job, and not being dependent on government. You cannot be, for me, freedom is not possible if you're not financially independent, right? Because some people say, I want to be wealthy. I have problem defining wealth. How many planes and helicopters and yachts you have to feel wealthy? When it comes to financial independence, it's very easy to define it. It's basically you don't have to work to cover your lifestyle expenses. That's it. So for me, it was very important to achieve this goal. And like I said, I achieved this goal within 7 years because I realized that you've got to develop multiple sources of income. And that's part of what I teach these days. When I talk to clients, they have very different definitions of financial freedom. Some say that it's ability to lose everything and then recover everything. So that's basically one of the definitions. Some feel that it's ability to travel the world, work with a laptop as you travel. So everybody has different definition. What is important that you know yours, right? For me, it was like, I want to be independent, so I don't have to worry about who I want to be with, who I want to work for, etc., etc., right? So that's me. I was never thinking about creating enormous wealth or having designer clothes or designer whatever, like a special car. I never thought about this. My goal always was to become financially free so I can live my life on my terms.
I love that. And for me, I actually crafted this definition of my own version of financially free, even though I would love to be that. I'm not in that position yet where we don't have to work to make something, but we enjoy what we do. So we don't mind that. And what's interesting is I always said it's not dreading waking up in the morning, number one, like to go to a job you hate to pay for bills for things that you don't even need. Right. So we wanted to just not be in that cycle. We said we want to wake up and enjoy what we do every day, but also not have to look at price tags on menus and at the grocery store. Like not have to look at them or to check our bank account before we make a purchase. That to me is financial freedom, is the experience, the lived experience of, do I have to make sure before I make a decision? Do I have to essentially ask permission before I make a decision that I want to? For me, that was that is like the shackle, right? Is the asking permission. It's the freedom of choice in our minds.
Yeah. Another definition, I love what you just described, financial freedom means to you. Another definition for me is to have freedom of time, freedom of
Yes.
location, and freedom of choice and money. Like I live in South Florida and south of France, half a year. I travel when I want. I still look at the pricing because I have a habit of seeing if it's represents the price represents value. It doesn't mean that I will not buy because it's a high price, but I want to know if the price is correlates with the value for me. So
Yes.
I think it's a pattern that I have, and some people feel like, oh, once you become financially free, you will never look at the price. And maybe for some, that was the goal. For me, it was never a goal because I have a choice. I see the price and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's maybe on a high end, but I want it and I can buy it.
Yes.
Versus like, I never want to look at the price. And I don't know, if I still look at the price and then I decide if it represents value for me or not.
Well, I do
What I,
too, especially
what
that.
I
Yeah.
yeah, what I wanted to add is that I work with some really high earners, like high income earners. And what was a big surprise to me, not anymore, that having money doesn't mean that you know what to do with it, right? Some people actually good at making money, but they're not good at keeping it and growing it, right? So
Absolutely.
that was interesting surprise to me because before I was like, if I only had a lot of money, I would know what to do with it. Not necessarily. Everybody has different money problems, so to speak, right? Some have problem making it, and other people have problem keeping it and growing it.
100%. And that's what the show's called, Keep What You Earn, right? We
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
help people make more and keep more of it, because making more money but not knowing how to manage it is trying to out burpee a bad diet. You can't really do it. You can't achieve your goals by doing that, pouring into the bucket with holes in it and all the metaphors, right? And I think that it's a really important subject to understand that a lot of people feel that this idea of financial freedom, financial independence feels distant or it feels impossible for them. It feels like, that's great. That sounds awesome. I love what Milan's saying. I want that for myself. But, and then insert every excuse, every story, every situation, every circumstance that is not in this person's favor to achieve that, right? You probably hear this all the time, that I want that, but, and then some other condition. How would you recommend that someone overcomes that sort of mindset? And what would you say to someone who says, that sounds nice, but maybe it's not for me?
very good point. Because many people have a huge but, right? They feel like they're driven, but then as soon as they say what they want, the but basically negates everything that they said before. you've got to have a very good reason why it's important to you. Like I described my story. I was divorced, I was depressed, I was broke. I wanted this because my life was dependent on it, right? I didn't want to live worrying about money and being stressed out about money and being with a partner who the only reason I was this partner because of money. I didn't want that. So knowing that you have very strong why you want to go for this is very important because you will be tested. Universe always tests us how, based on what is in our subconscious mind. What you described also, a lot of people have these blocks, not on a conscious level. Logically, they know that they have to do this and that, but on a subconscious or unconscious level, they have these blocks that were conditioned, they were conditioned by, they were programmed with since a young age, and they're not even aware of this, right? I work with someone who said she was a good at making money, but her parents were fairly poor. They didn't know how to manage money well. And so she developed this attitude that as soon as she makes a lot of money, she had to spend it, right? So everybody is different. You've got to really dive deep. And right now I'm using breath work. I'm also a certified energy healer. I help people to release these blocks, but you've got to be really in tune with what is deep inside that is blocking you from being at the level of success that you say you want. And that's why I'm saying when I say clarity of mind, it means that you're not only aware of your logical conscious mind scripts, right? Because we're running the script in our mind, but also you become aware through different kinds of work, breath work, meditation work. There are different modalities that you can use to become aware. What is it that is stopping you on a subconscious level that you were programmed without really being aware of? Like I recently did my own work, breath work, and what I discovered that I feel that I'm responsible for everybody in my life, for my family members, for my clients, etc. That was my block. And it's not only like emotional block, it became money block for me because I started sabotaging my efforts in my business. So very important to get that at this depth, right? And once you clear that, and once you say, this is so important to me that I want to learn how to get there, don't start with the how. Start with what and why it's important. And then follow this with the how, because how will come. But unless you're clear about what is it that you want, when I teach my steps to creating financial independence, the first step is start with the end in mind. Like what exactly that you want, how your financial freedom looks like and feels like. Because many people don't really have this clarity. So that's why mindset and again, mindset is not only conscious. We usually say money mindset, but it's also subconscious mind that you hold in certain blocks that stop you or sabotage you about
Great.
that.
And you brought up something really strong there, which was that there's this emotional block that leads to a behavioral block because you end up self-sabotaging because of something deeper going on. And I think that what a lot of people do is they treat that surface level symptom, or they think they can overcome that symptom somehow by changing something at a very superficial level, but they never really address what's causing it. It's like treating a symptom with the band-aids and with all the things and the creams and whatever, but never actually going to the root of what is causing that problem. It's every time you gain weight, going and getting plastic surgery. It's like, no, there's a reason why this is happening. You have to address that. If you want to fix what you perceive as a problem, you have to go to why is that problem happening, not necessarily I need to make that problem look like it's not there.
Great point. And that's why so many people have this your relationship with money, just like some people have your dieting, right? If you don't address
Exactly.
the deep level blocks that you have, you will keep sabotaging you at some point. You will get to the high level and then you will do something just because it's not the thermostat that you were set at. So that's very common. That's very common.
Yeah. And money, much like food, to use this metaphor again, is a relationship. that you have with it. There's an interpretation of what money is, what it's for, how it's used, how it fits into your life that is shaped whether you're conscious of it or not. And I think that an interesting thing that I've learned in working with clients and working with business owners for the last 5 years is that everyone's money story is so damn unique that there's a lot to be unpacked before we can even get started on tactical things. We have to go into, well, how do you see money? What is your relationship with it? So I know how to talk to you effectively about it. And I know where you're coming from to meet you where you're at. I'm sure you do the same with your clients.
Yes, I just want to remind people that money in its own is neutral, has neutral energy. We project our perceptions, our experiences, our view of the world on money. And that's why some people feel that it's hard to get. Some people feel that it's easy. Like my coach says, that money is the easiest thing to get in life. So that's
Mhm.
her perception. That's what she projects on this neutral thing we call money. And it will reflect the experiences that you will have. Whatever you project on money will be pictured out in your life. I like to say that money is a kind of a backdoor to your subconscious mind. That just sharing what I bringing back what I shared before, because if you have problem with money, there is something else is going on in your life, right? It's indicator, it's a backdoor to your subconscious mind. And very often when you dive deep and you discover what blocks are sabotaging you, certain things will start realigning as well. Your relationships, your self-image, your confidence and things like that. So very important. I believe that money is like an important money class that everybody meant to learn on our physical plane of existence, so to speak.
Yes. And what would you say, you worked with lots of people as a money mentor, money coach. What would you say are some of the unique aspects that you bring to those relationships and maybe even some unique stories that you've encountered with your clients?
Money affects relationships a great deal, right? I know some couples that they seem to love each other, but money was such an important divider in their relationship, because one was a spender, another was a saver. There are different money archetypes. So when you have opposite money archetypes, it's a little bit more challenging to find the common background, but it's possible. And again, we're talking about awareness, like the fact that you're aware that maybe your partner had a different money history and now has the money archetype, which is maybe a saver, and maybe your money archetype is a spender. You've got to communicate these differences and find maybe things that you can do together, you can discuss together instead of avoiding these conversations. Avoiding talking about money is the fastest way to create more problems. I had clients who she was so stressed out about all this financial stress. They had different archetypes with her partner that she developed thyroid cancer. Some people get to divorce because they realize that I cannot live with constant pressure when I have to ask my partner for permission to buy something, right? So I always, when I work with clients, I always address different aspects of their relationship in terms of how money affects this and what they can do differently to resolve this, to soften it. Because you don't have to, it's not necessarily the solution to divorce your partner, because the next partner can have the same problems, right? So you can become aware of this and learn the language, how you can talk to your partner in order to have some kind of common ground, how you can dream together, what goals you may work toward together, and see how you can reconcile. There are ways and tools to reconcile the differences in money attitude and money patterns and money behaviors.
Yeah, and you mentioned reconciling the differences. I think to your point about awareness, the first step is to acknowledge and recognize the differences. And that first has to happen. I think that's the hardest part is coming to the table and being willing to talk about those differences as opposed to, I don't know, treating them as identity traits. right? To say, you're a saver, I'm a spender, this won't work, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever that may look like. It's how do we navigate knowing that? And then how do we modify the way we operate as a household in order to accommodate that and to know each other's habits, right? There's a way to work within the structure as opposed to rejecting it altogether.
And I think absolutely, I agree with you. I think what is also important, first of all, it's communication is everything in the relationships, right? So there is a way to communicate about money as well. Instead of blaming, instead of just pointing fingers, you can say to yourself, okay, I see the pattern that he or she has. And what can I do to discuss this in a civil and loving way? Right? So remember, always be intentional in your communication. That's the key, right? If your intention is to be in this relationship, if your intention is to find a solution, read books, maybe work with someone to help you to find the language and tools to use to find the common ground. For example, I like to suggest to my clients to have money dates. Like when you have your partner on a money date and you just discuss with maybe in a cafe with a glass of wine and you discuss what you would like to experience and listen to what he or she would like to experience and then see how you could reconcile in a very loving and kind way. What is also very important, and those of you, your audience who have children, remember that children pay attention. They like sponges. They see if you're afraid of your money situation, if you're fearful of not having enough money or losing your job, etc., they will absorb this fear energy. And you don't want your children to absorb this fear around money, right? So communicating not only with your partner, but with your children and sharing them what you do and why you do. That's why it's important for parents to be good stewards of money, because the children will get these good habits just by observing what is happening as well.
I agree. And I have an interesting question for you and your perspective on this. What could let's just say there is a situation, there's a household where I'm gonna use the stereotype that the masculine figure in the household is very savvy with money, is in charge of it. The feminine figure, right, woman is saying, "Hey, I'm good. He takes care of everything. He balances the budget. He's got it under control. I trust him. He's in charge." And maybe they're not aware of what's going on and they're willingly non-participant in that conversation. What is your recommendation to the savvy individual to help engage the non-participating one in those conversations? What are some pieces of advice you have where you could empower the more financially savvy person to meet the other where they're at and bring them along for that conversation?
Great question. It's a very common, actually, common situation. I think that the savvy person, and if we use a traditional framework, it would be a masculine partner. If this partner loves the better part of this union, it would be his responsibility and his also, it must be in his awareness that in life you never know what may happen tomorrow, right? Things happen. And if you really love and care about this person, you want to make her feel at ease around money by teaching the basic management skills, maybe, or basic bookkeeping, or maybe even investing, right? You've got to really consciously invite her into this, not because you want her maybe to invest on her own, but just so that she will feel more confident being on her own. If God forbid something happens in life, which, it happens quite often. And it's a very important question. I personally always say that in any relationship, you've got to have your personal accounts and joint accounts. So I think that if, for example, wife wants to buy something, she should not be in a position to ask for permission. She should share this with her partner. She should maybe ask for support or share her intention and maybe ask for advice. but not for permission. And for that, you've got to be savvy. Even if you have a partner who is managing money at the moment and invest money in the moment, use this opportunity. And now I'm talking from another person's side point, like who is not very savvy with money. Use this opportunity to learn about money, because if you have no idea how to manage money, how to invest money, you will always feel fearful and stressed out. And unfortunately, so many women, when something happens, sudden death or divorce, unexpected divorce or whatever, women feel devastated. They feel lost. They feel like they lose their identity because now they don't know how to support themselves. This is not the way to live. And again, for the masculine partner in a relationship, if you love your partner, if you love your wife, make sure that you get her or him involved in this money management thing. It's not a rocket science at all, right? It just takes intention and I would say wisdom too.
Yeah. And I also agree that there's with almost anything in a marriage, and this is how we operate, is that no one person is solely responsible for something. There's always like, I'm the primary on it, you're the secondary. Like you're my backup, you're my support if something goes sideways. But we both know everything going on. It's just who's responsible for doing it. So we're not both doing something, right? To make sure it's actually run like a business in a sense. It's saying this is in your job description as the primary, and then I'll take over for you if you need support, you need help, and vice versa. And with money specifically, that's a big part of it is Jason takes care of certain things, I take care of certain things, just so that we know we can rely on each other as the primary on that stuff. But like you said with the money dates thing, we have a quarterly net worth conversation where we look at our net worth, where is all the money located? And we make sure it's working the way we want it to based on our goals. And we have an open conversation on, is this what we want to be doing right now? Let's talk about it and make sure we're still on the same path forward and we're not, diverting the ship in different directions. And I think that's a really important part of the conversation. Is just being willing to bring that up and create a space where that's what it's for. Like you said, go to the cafe, go sit down and make it a thing that you do routinely. So it's not as much of a pain to initiate, that it's actually on the calendar. It's like, that's the time when we talk about it. So I love that idea, Neelan. Thank you for that.
I love the idea that you're actually doing that already. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you're talking to an accountant and an entrepreneur. Trust me, when we got married, I think it's date 2 or 3 before I asked to see tax returns. So we're an unusual couple, but what works for us. And if anyone finds any inspiration in that or ideas, feel free to take it. Take what you want, leave what you don't. That's what I always say. But Milan, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. How can listeners find out more about what you have going on? Maybe some resources that you're willing to share?
So first of all, I do a lot of free stuff. So I have a YouTube channel called Millen Livis Channel Wealth. You can find tons of videos on any topic related to money there. I also have blog. You can read my blog on daretochange.life.com. That's where I have all my articles there. And I also write a newsletter on LinkedIn. And the best way, we talked about running enthusiastically in the wrong direction. The best way for me to give you the most valuable advice would be to schedule a complimentary consultation with me. Never worry about money again. And we could assess your current situation, your goals. We could discuss your goals, and you will walk away with clear, best next steps for you so that you have your never worry about money plan. Because that's important to have this big picture plan for you to know what is the next step that you can take. So you will be able to be discerning with any advice that you may get from other people, worlds and experiences.
Love it. Thank you so much, Milan, for your time and for sharing all those resources. Guys, check out the show notes for links to everything that Milan just mentioned. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Shannon. I think I forgot to say that the link to go to schedule consultation with me is speakwithmilan.com, speakwithmilan.com, and you can schedule it there. Thank you so much, Shannon. It was fun, and I hope your audience will get a ton of some tips and insights from this conversation today. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.